We've talked about quoting prose narration. What happens when the characters in the story are speaking? In short, how do you quote dialogue? It's actually pretty easy. When you come upon a passage that includes a quote and you want to quote the whole thing, you encase the quotation in one pair of double quotation marks just like you did when quoting narration. Then you use single quotation marks around the dialogue within your selection. You simply change the double marks to single marks. Let's look at an example from page 87 of Rocket Boys. You'll notice in this passage that there are 2 lines of narration followed by a line of dialogue. I want my quotation to include the second line of narration and the dialogue. And so I'd of course begin with a good lead-in sentence that supplies the context of the quote. Then I would use quotation marks to indicate that I'm using the author's words, and I would type the line of narration. I know I must have looked pitiful because that's the way I felt. So there's my line of narration. Now I've got to the part where I'm going to be quoting the dialogue. So instead of using the double quotes that Hickam used, I'm going to change those doubles to a single quote, and I'm going to type the dialogue now. Do you know how to solder? I'm going to end the dialogue with a single quotation mark, and I'm going to finish my quote. He said at length. And I'm going to end the quotation with, as usual, the double quotation marks. Then I'm going to have a space, and I'm going to use my parentheses. If it's the first quote from this author, I'm going to use the last name and the page number. If it's not the first quote that I've used, I'm going to use only the page number. So, let's say the passage that I have chosen includes only the dialogue. How would that look? Again, I would begin with a good lead-in sentence. Mr. Vykovsky's offer to teach Homer to weld acknowledges Mr. Hickam's objections. So now I'm going directly into the quote. So I'd open with a double quotation marks, and then I would change the author's double quotation marks to a single quotation mark. And you'll notice in Microsoft Word, if you put them right together using Times New Roman, it goes the wrong way. So put a space in there for now, and then go back and erase it so that the quote mark goes the correct way. Then I will teach you. Your dad should not have a problem with that. And I'm going to end the dialogue with a single quotation mark, and I'm going to end the quote with the double. And as usual, my citation that includes the page number. I'm going to go back and get rid of that space there so that it's accurate. So that's how that looks. This method is always acceptable. However, if your lead-in sentence indicates who the speaker is, you can simply eliminate the single marks and quote as if it were narration. And since my lead-in sentence does indicate who the speakers are, who the parties are in this passage, I can simply get rid of those single dialogue marks. If you're quoting both dialogue and narration, you cannot do that. But if you're quoting only dialogue and your lead-in sentence indicates who the speaker is, then you can get away with quoting it as if it were narration.